Hi, my name is Catherine, and today I'm going to show you how to make hash brown casserole. This is a dish that is not fancy. This is not highbrow cooking, but it is so good and so delicious, and it is one of my family's favorite go-to things. And as I'm explaining it, I want to draw attention to the order in which I'm doing things, because my experience is this is what makes all the difference. So in a big bowl, we are first going to combine 1 can of cream of chicken soup, and we're gonna stir that with the sour cream. Not fancy ingredients, but pretty simple, easy to find. And what we wanna do is we are going to mix these ingredients until they kind of form their own mixture before we add anything else. And the reason that that is important is when we go to add the seasoning, we want the seasoning to not clump up in one space, and we don't want the butter to clump up in one space. We want each ingredient to be evenly distributed throughout the casserole. So I'm here in a big bowl, just giving it a stir until the two colors kind of, make one. It's a nice, lovely sound. To this, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of Morton's kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, sorry, half a teaspoon. I said 1 teaspoon, I meant half. And then evenly distribute, and you can visually see the pepper flakes, and that will give you an indication of how you're doing as you're mixing, kind of if it's even or not. So this is our base. Sour cream, cream of chicken soup, and our salt and our pepper. Now we're going to add the cheese, and I'm using a pound of pre-grated cheddar cheese. You can certainly grate your own and it will definitely melt creamier, but I know that in reality most people buy pre-grated cheddar cheese, and that's okay, it'll work. So now we're basically coating the cheddar cheese with our evenly seasoned sour cream mixture. And what I like, if we had put all this in the bowl at once and then added the salt and pepper, it's not the same. There's just more room for error when you do it that way. And this way, every single bite gets perfectly seasoned and has the same consistency. Okay, once we have kind of coated the cheddar cheese with the cream mixture, we're now going to add a half a cup, which is 1 stick of melted unsalted butter. Before I pour this in, I want to let you know that this warm butter, when it hits the cold mixture, is going to kind of seize up, and that's okay. We're going to do our best to kind of mix it around. It will melt again in the oven when we bake it, but just know that that you may see signs that the butter has chilled when it hits the cold sour cream and cheese. So just stirring and scraping, kind of cutting through and moving it. And the butter is the last ingredient before we add the actual shredded potatoes. And what we have here, what we've created, is a perfectly smooth, consistently seasoned base for our potatoes. Okay, I want to take just a second and talk about the potatoes, because depending on where you grocery shop, depending on where you find yourself, shredded hash brown potatoes come in a variety of styles, brands, package sizes, all of the above. The grocery store that I was at yesterday only sells this very fancy brand. It's organic, and they come in 1 pound packages. The recipe calls for 32 ounces, so I got 2 1-pound packages. If I had been at like Target or another kind of more standard grocery store, these are usually sold in somewhere between 30 ounces and 34 ounces. I have seen the package size change on this over my span as a home cook. I don't want you to fuss about a couple of ounces. As long as it's near 2 pounds, which is 32 ounces, you're fine. So if your package says 30 ounces, fine. If your package says 34 ounces, fine. Don't fret about that. So what I have here is 2 pounds in 2 different packages. You may find it in 1 package. My point is, a little bit more or a little bit less of shredded potato is not going to ruin your recipe. Okay, so these are going right in, and when I add these to this bowl, we're going to just stir all this together, but it's important to see that if I were using any smaller of a bowl, I would not have the room to stir this. When you're mixing in a bowl, it's not just will everything fit in the bowl, it's will everything fit in the bowl with room for me to move it around. So you might start with your biggest mixing bowl possible when you go to make this, because it kind of takes, even there I'm dumping it out, it kind of takes some room to get it all mixed together. And what we're looking for is just kind of evenly distributing the potatoes inside the cream sauce until it kind of becomes one mixture. And when this gets in the oven and starts to cook and melt, oh my gosh. Also want to encourage you not to skimp on that salt. Potatoes have no flavoring and need a ton of help in the salt category. Okay, so here we go. This is our filling mixture. You're gonna need some sort of like 9 by 13-ish baking dish. This does make a nice large portion. So just dump this directly into the baking dish. Don't put this bowl away, we still are gonna use it. Use your spatula to evenly spread the potato cheese mixture into the baking dish. Okay, now we're gonna make the cornflake topping, and because I hate dishes, we're just gonna make it directly in the same bowl. There is no reason to not use the same bowl because everything in this bowl is already in here, so if it gets on it, it's not a big deal. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with 6 cups of cornflakes, just whatever cornflakes you like. This is about half a pound, 8 ounces. So if you're looking at the box of cereal and you're looking at the weight, you need 8 ounces. Just dump it in there. We're now gonna use our hands and we are gonna crush this. And this is kind of a personal preference thing about how big or small, whoa, hey, you like the flakes on top of your casserole. I like them to not look like cereal anymore, but I'm not looking for a fine dust. So it's usually about like this. And you'll start to see the bigger flakes kind of, cease to exist. And this is about where I stop. It definitely does not look like cereal anymore, but it also doesn't look like the powdery stuff you find at the bottom of the cracker drawer or something. It's definitely got texture. Okay, so to this we're just adding another half of a cup, which is, a quarter of a cup, which is half a stick of unsalted melted butter. Pour that directly on, and then we need to season this. So we're adding a half of a teaspoon of Morton's kosher salt. And yes, you do need to also salt the topping, even though we have salted the base. You're gonna give this a quick stir until the butter, is kind of evenly distributed among the cornflakes. And what this will do, if you just put cornflakes on top of here, it would be okay, but because we're coating them in butter, it's going to brown and crisp nicely in the oven, not to mention taste amazing. Okay, so now this goes right on top of our base. See, it was no big deal that we used the same bowl. Less dishes. And then just use your spatula to spread these out. I really like the ratio of topping here. I like a lot of the crunchy topping, and this is definitely a nice little capper. Okay, so this hash brown casserole is now ready to go in the oven. This bakes at 350 degrees for, if you're in a baking dish that's this big and your casserole is cold, this is gonna take about 45 minutes. If you were to divide this up into smaller ones or something, it might take 30, but plan on 45 minutes in the oven. You're looking for hot and bubbly around the edges, definitely hot all the way in the center, and brown and beautiful on top. The recipe says that at this point you can cover it unbaked and store it in your refrigerator for a day ahead. I will give you a little bit of an insider's tip and tell you this can be made more than one day in advance. in my professional opinion, I can tell you that you could make this up to 3 days in advance and still be 100% fine. So factor that in as far as meal planning, or this is the thing that you can make way in advance, so go ahead and make it way in advance. This also freezes beautifully, either unbaked or baked. It's one of those dishes that is here to make you look good, and it tastes even better. So I hope you try hash brown casserole. It's easy, it's delicious. I hope it will be one of your family's favorites.